that I do a lot of are addressing tax objections and tax appeals. And I'm just going to talk about assessment cases. And if there was ever an area that screamed out for intergovernmental cooperation, it would be tax assessment appeals, because all taxing bodies are affected by this. This is when a taxpayer, an individual taxpayer, says that the assessing officials, first at the township level and then at the county board review level, did not assess their property too high. If the board of review, if the taxpayer is still unsatisfied with what the board of review says at the county level, that's where the tax rates are calculated. The taxpayer pays their taxes, but then they have the right to keep appealing. And they have two routes. One is to go through a state agency called the Property Tax Appeal Board, commonly referred to as PTAB. Alternatively, you don't see quite as often in the collar counties, but they have the option of going to the circuit court directly in what's called a specific objection. And you do see that occasionally. What happens is, if the taxpayer is ultimately successful in getting the PTAB or the court to say that the county and the assessor were too high, then that taxpayer gets a refund of the taxes that they've already paid. Now, how do they get a refund? You don't write a check for each of your individual districts. What happens is that the county treasurer writes that check, and then they subtract the amount of that from your future tax distributions. So when you get your tax distributions from the county treasurer and you think, okay, I'm anticipating already got from the county clerk, this is what I expect to be extended on my behalf, and then you look and wait a minute, something got lopped off the top. It's usually because of this, okay? Now, in some communities, they're very common. In some communities, they're not that common. But it's even where it's not that common, it's good to be prepared, because when you have a large one, and you can have a large objection, certainly, or even a small one, you might want to be prepared and decide as a group how you want to handle this. And I represent various taxing bodies, and I've been involved in different ways of which taxing bodies address this. Frequently, maybe just the two school districts will informally cooperate together. Some places, they have a very formal structure. In Niles Township in Cook County, for instance, there is a long-standing, about a 15-year-old now, intergovernmental agreement, and they use the township's school treasurer as a clearinghouse and an administrative agency, and all the taxing bodies get involved. Some communities, unfortunately, you will see one taxing body that gets involved, and the other taxing bodies stand aside. That's basically the free rider concept, okay? And there's a couple things wrong with the free rider, in my opinion. First of all, why should one taxing body take the onus and take all the responsibility for the costs when ultimately they're trying to protect the revenue stream of everybody? But the other thing is that when you look at a tax appeal and decide whether it's cost effective to get involved, or even if you do intervene, do we want to hire an expert? That's one of the biggest costs that are involved. You have to decide how much revenue do I have at stake? And if you have one taxing body, they might say, you know what, I've only got $10,000 on the table. Not only, but I got $10,000 on the table. I'm not going to pay $3,000 for an appraisal report when I only have $10,000 at risk. But if you combine all the taxing bodies and there's $50,000 or $60,000 on the table, well, all of a sudden that $3,000 or $4,000 appraisal makes economic sense, okay? And I mentioned the appraisal report because besides the attorney's fees, which is another issue, don't forget that one. Don't want to forget that one. But
we won't.
When you go to a hearing in front of PTAB or the circuit court, it's generally, not always, but generally with these assessment cases, it's a battle of the experts. It's the taxpayer's going to walk in with an appraisal report done by an MAI certified valuation expert because it's important to them. So they go in, they pay for that. Theoretically, the county, state's attorney representing the county treasurer who's collecting the taxes, the state's attorney is supposed to represent all the taxing bodies. They can't do that. In no county do I know of, anywhere in Illinois, does the county and the state's attorney's office, do they have the resources to go and hire an expert for every PTAB case that comes along the line? And frankly, the county's tax rate compared to all of yours combined is nothing. So even if they conscientiously try to represent the districts, they don't have the money that they're going to go out and hire an expert appraisal. And if that taxpayer walks in with a MAI certified expert report and the state's attorney sitting there saying, I've got the township assessor, you know, she can testify about inspecting the property, you know, you're going to lose, okay? So when there's enough money on the table, you want to have enough people with enough at stake that it makes some sense to go out and hire an expert and share the costs. So what I've done is I've drafted an intergovernmental agreement that shows one way it can work. And because District 86, we're trying to look at this and all the communities in the district, we're proposing to be the administrative district for anybody who signs on. And voting will be weighted by your tax rate, and costs will be weighted by your tax rate, okay? So if you have a very small tax rate, typically the library or the park or township would be a relatively smaller rate. You wouldn't be expected to pay as much for these costs as the city and the two school districts, because frankly the city and the two school districts are going to be the vast majority of the tax rate. But it's fair for everyone to share pro rata based upon their relative tax rates. Now, I've got a threshold in there about when an intervention, a sort of a default, and this can be adjusted what the parties want, but it would be when there is an assessment reduction of $300,000. That's not tax revenues, but assessment. So take an assessment of $300,000 and multiply that times your tax rate, and that's how much money's involved. But aggregate those tax rates, and you can see that sometimes there'll be many thousands of dollars at issue. You'll get a notice, mind you, from PTAB, from the county, about a PTAB appeal anytime there's an assessment reduction of $100,000 or more, okay? I'm suggesting that the smaller ones, that they may not be worthwhile. However, that's the default. If the group wants to intervene for a smaller appeal, they can do it. If the group doesn't want to intervene in a bigger appeal, they can make that decision. And by the group, I mean the taxing bodies who sign the agreement, who have this particular territory in their, this property within their territory, okay? There are other kinds of assessment cases. I said before that this is refunds after the taxpayer has paid their taxes. You do get a notice in DuPage County when there is an assessment reduction at the Board of Review level. That's the final pre-tax level at the county. Normally speaking, I recommend that taxing bodies not intervene in those cases because it's revenue neutral to you. We're a tax cap county. If somebody pre-tax rates calculation gets a reduction on their valuation, then your rates are going to go up marginally, and the effect is that the tax burden is redistributed. I do have sort of a rule of thumb for cases where I think taxing bodies might want to get involved. It might be that you've got a PTAB case from a previous year involving the same property. You might want to intervene, and guess what? You might want to structure a deal where you support the taxpayer for a reduction for the current year in order that they'll maybe drop the one where they're going to get a refund, okay? So that's an idea. Another one might be where a particular a property is such a large percent, 10% or something of your tax base, if you have that in this community, it might be worthwhile to get involved early on, okay? And then the third circumstance is you rarely see, but where there's a legal issue that cuts across board, because it's one that we're going to see reoccurring. A hot issue recently was golf courses and how they were being assessed and what's considered open space under the statute. So there were a lot of legal issues involved there, and you might want to get in at the ground floor to talk about those. But generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend getting involved in board of review cases. However, if the group wants to get involved in a board of review case, they can do it. And then the other kind of case I want to mention is the tax exemptions. Normally speaking, these are routine. Each of your taxing bodies, if you acquire property, you apply for a tax exemption. It's, in the long run, it doesn't cost your fellow taxing bodies money because that's just a reduction of your EAV. Your tax rates will go up. However, it takes a while for tax exemptions to be processed. They have to, the taxpayer has to file an application at the Board of Review level, and then it goes up to the Illinois Department of Revenue. And that takes a while. And what happens in the meantime? The taxpayer is paying taxes, and then they get a refund. Sometimes there might be a legal issue. Right now, I'm heavily involved in a case involving, for instance, a hospital that is owned by a nonprofit, but a few years ago, the Illinois Supreme Court made it very clear that just because you're a non-for-profit corporation, that doesn't entitle you to a property tax exemption. You might have heard of the Provena case. The Illinois legislature responded to that case by passing a law that said, okay, this is how we're going to treat hospitals. They're going to get tax exemption as long as they can prove that they do more in charitable work than they would have paid in taxes. That's pretty easy for a lot of hospitals to establish, and I think blatantly unconstitutional. Right now, we're involved in litigation arguing on whether that hospital is entitled to a tax exemption. It's just an example, okay? You could have a church-owned banquet hall, for instance. You know, well, it's a church. Well, no, but if they're leasing it out for profit, then it shouldn't be tax exempt. So sometimes you have those issues. Mostly, and I'll also say another routine thing is somebody's got a fly-by-night, a very small church where the pastor wants to declare their own home to be the parsonage. You know, you get those once in a while. By and large, exemptions, however, are routine. You just want to know they're out there. But this is another type of case that if it goes through, it has a revenue impact on all the taxing bodies the same way that a PTAB case would. So it's another one of the kinds of cases that if the working group wants to get involved, they can. But we made it very simple. To become a party to this, all you have to do is your board votes to approve it, your governing board. If you want to get out, they can pass a motion pulling out with 30 days notice. It only specifies that you would be still responsible for sharing the costs of any appeals that were initiated when you were a member. But any new ones, you don't. But if you don't participate, or if you're participating and you pull out, what's the disadvantage? Like I said before, first of all, you're counting on the other taxing bodies to fight your fight for you. And if they don't do that, then nobody's going to step forward. If you do more taxing bodies that do it, the more likely that you're going to join. And secondly, it's that threshold amount of revenue at stake. That if we only have one taxing body who files the intervention, they might say, there's no reason for us to. We haven't got enough dollars at risk. But if you've got multiple taxing bodies, there's more dollars at risk, and therefore more likely that you'd be participating in the case. That's the framework.
Did you say that the threshold you're looking at is $100,000?
No, I said 300,000, but that's subject to change. You will get a notice. The threshold for getting a notice in PTAB is $100,000 of assessment reduction, not revenue. Okay. But the default that I have in the draft agreement is that the group would get involved if there was $300,000 of assessed value reduction requested.
Yeah, we routinely get pre-tax notices about, and it's usually large corporations or large apartment complexes in the city of Darien that will be looking for. But as you said, it's revenue neutral in those situations.
Exactly.
So that's why we have never fought them.
Right.
So.
And the District 86 board has made a policy decision that if it's a single-family residence, even if it reaches a certain threshold, it's a big enough home, it might, that they're not interested in contesting that. It's more of the commercial and industrial properties.
Okay.
But those are decisions the group can make as far as establishing policy.
Actually, because Kathy Abate's here from the township, I mean, they have the assessor, right, in your office?
Yeah, the assessor's part of the
So are they
township.
suing themselves, or, I mean?
No, if we get involved, we're trying to defend what the assessor did, okay?
Oh,
It-
so
we-
that would, yeah, okay.
So
Okay.
we would not be part of this.
You could, no, you can
No,
be.
no, you
We
can.
Part of
Can
it.
be?
You
Yeah.
can, but theoretically, the state's attorney is representing the township assessor and the board review. But, you know,
They don't
but
do
you also
separate
have a property tax stake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In your road district as well. So you look at those two together, and so you have a revenue at stake. But it, you know, there's another reason to get involved, is just to be supportive of the assessor's action.
I think a lot of us would, well, obviously, we all have to take this to our boards for discussion, but I'm sure each one of the boards would want to know up front what kind of costs we're looking at. So I don't know how you
I
can
can
identify
try to give you an
that.
estimate on, but, you know, it varies so much on particular cases. But I can send you,
I think that would be an important piece of
Oh, yeah.
information for everybody to take back
Certainly.
to their boards with this
Certainly.
intergovernmental agreement, so,
certainly.
okay.
Is the boundary of District 86?
Well,
Oh, no, he's, no, he's
that's
talking about that.
what we're addressing, because District 86 is proposing to be the administrative district. But right now, you know, it's anybody who signs on.
I see.
And in a particular appeal, you would look at what I called in here a working group. So the working group would be the taxing bodies that are affected by a particular parcel.
I see.
So if that parcel is in the city of Darien, then chances are it's these people around the table that are going to be affected, and we're not going to be talking to other districts which happen to have boundaries within District 86,
Right,
okay?
I gotcha.
But it's only these.
So you could have a very large group of taxing bodies involved in this, but the working group would only be the group that's involved in that particular tax appeal.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the group that would decide, are we going to hire an appraiser? Are we going to settle? Are we going to get involved? Are we going to set the threshold higher? Are we going to set the threshold lower? Those decisions would be made by the working group based upon a pro rata weighted vote.
Who is the working group? I mean,
The working group would be the business official from each of the affected districts.
Well, a district that, or a taxing body that has a very small percentage
Yes,
of the total tax bill,
yes,
their vote really would be meaningless, because they would have very little
right. But-
say. I mean, since they're such a small percentage of the overall group,
Right.
essentially it's gonna be the school districts and
It's
the city
effectively,
that vote on it,
right,
right?
if you've got the elementary district, the high school district, and the city
I know.
or village involved, the three of those will, two of the three of those will control the vote,
Right,
okay? But on the other hand, the trade-off is that the smaller taxing bodies aren't, you know, they're, the amount of revenue that they're involved is, the cost that they're asked to share will be much
right.
proportionally lower.
Understood, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. My other question is, in our school district is 95% single-family dwelling. I don't know that we've had in a long time any
You may not.
commercial.
But he has a golf course, and isn't it in your
We
territory?
do, but I mean, that's,
It could,
That's-
and there's no harm in, if you think it's rare where you're gonna have an appeal of the size enough that you wanna get involved, there's still no harm entering the agreement, because you might get that one case every 6 or 7 years, and then you're prepared, okay? This, you know, it's interesting, just the history of it. PTAB was established many years ago, but its jurisdiction didn't include Cook County until 1997, 1998. As soon as the law was expanded to include Cook County, there was an explosion of litigation. And it created a cottage industry. There are a lot of appraisers out there. There's a lot of attorneys out there who, this is what they do. And you know what? When you all of a sudden you've got a lot of people who are trained to do this, they start looking for new territory. And so when we didn't get a lot of cases in the early 90s in the collar counties, we're seeing more. And I attribute that to the fact, not that the assessors in the collar counties are not doing as good a job as they did 25 years ago, but because you've got appraisers and attorneys who are all geared up and marketing themselves to businesses, because they'll take it on a contingency fee basis, and they said, if I lose, you don't pay a dime. But boy, if I get you some money, then you have to pay me a third or whatever it is. And so we're seeing more and more of these in the collar counties, and it's typically more. I'd say we see a lot of retail, and part of that is also the economy, because retail is hurting. And a lot of times the assessing officials are slower to recognize the hurt that retail is taking. And so what do? They file an assessment appeal.
But wouldn't it, and maybe I'm missing something in this equation, but some of these elementary school districts are connected to 86. So,
Some are connected to Downers Grove's.
of course,
Yeah.
and some are Downers Grove South, whatever the case may be, but let's just say if 86 is involved in a situation and it's not involving 63, then 63 would have no liability.
They wouldn't have to pay, is that
If
what you're saying?
districts, you're saying if the property is in 63, but 63 doesn't join the appeal?
No.
Doesn't join the
No,
appeal?
it's outside of 63.
We have-
percent.
So I
Outside
was-
of 63?
Yeah, there's more grade schools than are actually
We-
here.
Right.
Right.
You know,
I mean,
we're
we've got
hoping
all these-
this will work better the more districts that join.
Sure.
Okay? What happens if they don't join? Then,
Oh, I understand
then
what happens if they
likely
don't join.
District 86 will take a pass on more and more of these cases. Okay?
Now, most of the libraries are city libraries. We're a district library.
Yeah.
We're not on this list.
Well, if I
that-
missed one, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I'm just curious because
But you do have a tax rate here.
a lot of libraries are
I understand, some are,
part of the
you
city.
still have a tax rate, but it's a village, you're.
Right, but we're
yeah, I've
separate,
represented-
totally, completely separate tax body.
Right, you're a library district, not a library board.
Right.
And, I had printed out, just for some of this group here, the township has a 13 rate of 0368, the road district 0549. Just to get an idea of what they are relative, the city of Darien is 0.2999. The the Darien Park District is 0.3525. The Darien Woodridge Fire Protection District is 0.6323. The Indian Prairie Library District is 0.1843. And the elementary districts, of course, are going to be $3 or $4. So, like I said, relatively speaking, it's the city and the school districts that have a much larger tax rate.
Stake. Okay.
But that doesn't mean,
Yeah.
just because the dollars are smaller, it's still the same percentage of your budget.
Yes,
Okay?
sure. Well, and this is something, that should be at least presented to the board,
Yes.
I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd be doing a disservice to the board not to present it.
I think John will get us more information as to, he could.
I'll give you an
he could work
estimate
up
of
a
what it
scenario
costs, but
of
it has
what-
to be a wide range, because,
You could do scenarios based upon the number of groups that join.
certainly,
You could
Certainly.
do a rate that way.
certainly. And understand, there's also a value to intervening, even if you don't decide to hire an expert or submit your own evidence. And that is, you don't want the reputation out there that this community is a pushover for assessment appeals, because that's part of the marketing that the attorneys for these taxpayers will do. They'll say, we'll file it, I'll guarantee you'll get something.
Well, how much of a pushover have we been?
I don't know.
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question.
You may
I
may not
guess
have had
that's-
a rush of cases, but if
But that may change.
we want to be prepared, because since I've started representing District 86 for about 5 or 6 months, and we've seen, I want to say, about 10 or 12 appeals come across my desk.
And how many
Most of them were
have been
very small,
single-family homes?
about half of them. And I think there were only 2 that met the threshold of over 300,000. And those were, I think, I don't know if they were in Darien. I don't remember.
Sarah, our library district
Were
does
any of
have a
them
lot of
businesses?
retail. We
Oh,
do
yeah.
cover
Yeah.
quite a
I'm
large
just-
area
Yeah.
of actual
Yeah, you do
land,
cover a wide.
of actual,
yeah,
I mean, all like 83, and, I mean, we actually do have a lot more maybe commercial than some of even the school districts. And the other thing that kind of makes it even more interesting is that we also are in Cook County,
You're in Cook County?
part.
So are we.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There has to be other people that are cross counties too.
Well, it's interesting. I'll make a, for those of you not in Cook County, you may not care, but let me point something else about that. In Cook County, they have a multiplier, which is about 3. It was well over 3, now it's a little under 3. But what that means is, when I said the threshold assessed value reduction, in Cook County, you take that assessed value and you multiply it by about 3. So the threshold for Cook taking an appeal in Cook should be much lower because, there's a lot, there can be a lot more money at stake there.
Okay, so, yeah, we'll get some more information for us, John, and
Sure.
we'll all take it to our own boards.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks very much for
Thank
your,
you much.
Very
for your
welcome.
information.
Have a good evening.
Okay, when I initially, the items for discussion, we initially put the Darien Historical Society on this, but I don't, Alice said, should I come to the meeting? And I said, well, it's up to you if you want to come. I don't know if anybody has any more suggestions for them, but right now, this issue is at the city level to deal with, so I don't think we need to address too much unless anyone feels that they have some ideas. What we're doing right now is, we had a work session regarding the issue of how to handle, whether we take it over or what. And so we developed a number of questions. So now we've given that list of questions to the Historical Society to respond to. And I think we have them scheduled for our next city council meeting to come to our meeting to see, where we're at in the process. As far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest issues is that property belongs to 61.
61.
So the city, as far as I'm concerned, I would not want to obligate the city to do anything unless we own that property. So I think that's going to be a major discussion point for us. So just to keep you apprised of where that issue is. So on to the most important issue here is this town hall meeting discussion. As you know, we have the second annual town hall meeting scheduled for September 25th. And it's going to be at Chuck's this time. So Chuck was very enthusiastic about taking us on. And so what we need to discuss tonight is the format of how we're going to do this. We had a lot of aldermen here a couple meetings ago making suggestions, and I think we all made suggestions too, but it was clear that we definitely needed more time. I think, Rich, you were one of the suggesters that we have a map of the layout of the room, and it's handed to every resident that comes in, and there is more time for the residents to go around to all of the taxing bodies and meet with them, and whatever each taxing body wants to do during that time. And then when it came to a presentation, if we felt we wanted to do one, I think there was discussion about a panel instead of just one individual speaking. As I did the last time when we initiated the town hall. So I'd like your thoughts on where we need to go with this. We have a date, we have a location, and now we have to come up with how do we want to do this. And so I would like to get your ideas. Do you think a panel is the way to go? Do we want any presentation whatsoever, or do we want to let residents just come into the room after they've gone around the room meeting people to just start asking questions of all of us?
my gut tells me a brief presentation might set the tone better.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, brief.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was clear after the first one, that it had to be brief. And by whom would this be? Would this be a brief presentation by each one, a representative from each one of the taxing bodies?
It's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe one spokesperson talking about commonalities, something like that. Might be a little difficult, though.
Well, we'd have to have one spokesperson for each taxing body up as the panel. That for sure we have to have, if we're gonna go the panel route. Should we, well, the last time we asked for questions ahead of time, so we can certainly do that. And of course, we have to start the campaign soon, just like we did last time. And I'm sure Claire has all of our logos that she can start that process right away. But, yeah, what do you think? Do you want to take this back to your boards and decide how you want to handle it for each one of you? Or, how do you want to do this?
I think we should decide at this group.
Yeah.
I think if you try to get each board, you're gonna get so many different opinions on this. that-
Well, I'm with you, Rich, yeah, I'm with you, that I think this
so
group
too.
should decide how we want to handle it.
I do think, though, it has to be somewhat grouped, maybe the questions, I don't know, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, but I mean, like, services, you know, do you have any questions on services? Or maybe future plans, and maybe finance. You know, I'm just trying to,
Oh,
rather, then it's all over the place.
that's not a bad suggestion, you know, to have, along with the handout for the room layout, you know,
Well, we
have
put the
something.
school districts together as a presentation together somehow with bullet points together
Well,
with some commonality.
they could be doing that at their tables when people walk around.
That it's
I like
mapped
it.
that way.
I like the idea of having the topics, because that will suggest questions to people.
Otherwise,
They
you're
might
just,
not have even thought of, you know, oh, I do
Right.
have a question about that area, when they see the different topics.
Yeah, Marion, I
Right,
thought
like
that was a
ways
very
to
good
follow
idea. Have a list of, what you described as, services.
Services.
Services was one of them.
finance,
Future plans.
future plan, yeah, like, future plans. I don't wanna say complaints, but.
Well, complaints can be
Can
fit
be-
into all of those subject areas, yes.
Probably. Initiatives.
Initiatives, okay. You know, one thing, we at the city level, and Bob, I'm sure you're in the same boat as we are, the state legislature, well, they're in committee now, about allowing firefighters to actually include them telling the board, the Fire Protection Board, how many employees they think they need. And we're concerned about that because and the firefighters' unions are big contributors down in Springfield. So we're on the list of people against allowing this initiative to go through. We're concerned that if the firefighters' union is allowed to dictate to the fire protection boards how many employees they think they need, I mean, that is up to the board to decide within their budgets how many employees they need, and that goes to all of us too. So we're worried if they give this to the fire protection districts, it's only a matter of time before it trickles down to the police departments and so on and so forth. So we're fighting it at the state level right now, and that goes back to all of those initiatives. So maybe we should have, as one of the presenters should maybe go into that about what's happening in Springfield that's impacting us. I don't know, it's just a thought after what I just described, what we're trying to deal with now. If this goes through, I mean,
But we have a problem right now because a firefighter can run be on the board of directors. If they get elected, they're on the board. We can't say, hey, just because you're a fireman here in the district, you can't be on the board. Oh, no. So we have 5 board members and 2 are up for reelection. If they get together and say, look, you and you want to get together and be on the board, we now have 2 of the 5 being firefighters.
Can't you pass a policy to prohibit
Isn't
that?
that a
Because we have a policy
is
prohibiting
that state
that.
legislature that
We can't
describes?
stop that. Jack?
At what level does
We have
that
a
happen?
These
All the
can't
way
be
up.
paid.
At the state level?
It can't be.
That's
We have
right.
employees?
No.
No, we
Can
have,
be, it can just be any firefighter that wants to.
oh, any firefighter, but what about
That's
an
right.
employee who lives in the
Employee
district?
can run for the board too. There's nothing that can stop that.
Wow.
What my question was, is this part of a law instituted by the state
The county,
or
the county and the state.
the county too?
County gets involved in everything that the fire departments are doing.
I know that we're, trying our best to eliminate
Well, it's
taxing
typical.
bodies that don't,
When
have
the
no
county's hurting for
purpose.
money, they're looking for somebody to go ahead and blame. And they'll have you off balance by worrying about that and worrying about what's going on in Springfield instead of running your business. And then they go on fat, dumb, and happy, and the next thing you know, you're really being gobbled up. So it's a problem. It's a real problem. And Springfield has given away a lot of stuff.
Oh, they're very good at that. I mean, it's been going on for years. I mean, well, we all know.
Well,
I'm
none of us
speaking to the
like-
choir, on this issue, but
None of us are that impressed with Springfield anyway.
that's for sure. Okay,
Excuse me
so
there,
I
Doc.
think we need to, I think that needs to be a subject area that we discuss, is because a lot of us, well, now we're not under, the property tax cap. We are not under that, but most of you are. So what they do in Springfield has a lot to do what you do here. And the taxpayers need to know that, you know what, our tax rate is sky high because of, something that's been done down in Springfield, or, so I think that has to be one of the initiatives, the subject matters that we talk about.
As an example, the fire chiefs have their lobbyist in Springfield. The fire protection districts have their lobbyist in Springfield. All these different organizations that are involved with the fire departments have their lobbyists in Springfield. And we get a whole group of things that's on the mill that could come down, which I'm sure everyone here gets. House Bill so-and-so, Senate Bill so-and-so.
Yep.
It drives you crazy, and there's always a percentage of people that are gonna worry about what may happen, instead of just handling what is going to happen and what they've passed. And it's just a smoke and mirrors type thing to keep everyone off balance, I swear.
So these are good subject matters that we brought up: services, finance, future plans, initiatives, maybe state issues that impact us. Is there any other ones that we can think of? I think this would be good.
What about retirement reform? Is that just the schools' retirement reform? Pension reform?
What pension reform are you talking about?
Okay, so it's the state pension reform, and then it's hitting the
How,
teachers.
yeah, how is it? How
I'm
would,
just asking if it's hitting the other taxing bodies. No, okay. So then that wouldn't be a common issue.
well, I mean,
But you
it's,
could bring that, I mean,
Oh,
I think
it's-
that
it's
would be
hitting us.
your
But that, I
comment.
mean, that's definitely a way that Springfield is impacting school districts. I mean, that
Oh,
would,
gosh,
that would
yes.
fall in that area.
okay,
Absolutely.
pension reform, okay.
I mean, we hear it on the news every other day.
We used to call it unfunded mandates,
Right.
that's a big
I
one.
think everybody
Yeah, we've got
uses
plenty of
that
those.
term.
I thought they all were unfunded.
Yeah.
We should pass a resolution saying, no more unfunded mandates.
Okay, I think we got a good starting point here. I think this is really good, is to,
People wanna talk.
Yeah.
That's really what the whole goal to me is, let them talk and ask the questions that they want. And if someone pops out and they're upset about the city, let them say it and
Yeah.
get it off their chest and then go on to something else.
yeah, exactly.
But there should be a moderator there that when it gets out of hand, and it does,
Sure
you know, to kind of call it quits and say, now do we
Be the
have another
chief.
question?
We'll have
Some
Chief
big
Brown.
guy.
No, it's not,
I'm teasing.
the chairman, I mean, maybe the chamber,
We'll make
I
Bob
don't know.
Klein do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
You
maybe
just
not.
volunteered,
The enforcer.
the enforcer.
The enforcer.
Okay,
That's fun.
we can't let this go too much longer. Unfortunately, we had to postpone our April meeting to May, and now we're looking down the the throat of summertime. So,
We hope.
yeah, if it ever gets here, yeah, exactly. But I don't think we can let this issue drop until September. What's your thoughts
I
about
don't think so either.
meeting again? I mean, do you want to meet as early as June? Do you want to meet in August? I'm trying to remember how we handled it last time.
I know we had a meeting in August.
Okay.
June was difficult.
Well, and
with
schools
a
go
lot
till the
of
12th.
activities.
So,
I thought it was.
What's that?
I thought that May and, well, June was kind of difficult with activities,
Yeah,
wrap-up
probably.
activities.
Well, and then we ran into the 4th of July, so
That's
I think
right.
that's why we
So-
decided on
so
August
June is-
last year.
June and August maybe.
Okay,
something like
all right, I'm gonna look at August, and we always shoot for the first Tuesday of the month, and that would be August 5th. Uh-oh, that grimace, what does that mean?
No, that's the first Tuesday's the 5th, okay.
that's all right.
Are you okay? What do we got?
We're fine.
Well, there's
I
two
don't
of
think
us.
it's gonna require much planning.
There's
I really
two of
don't.
us.
It's just the place we're gonna have it and the time.
That's okay.
Yeah,
And then we
And
have to make sure that we have representatives that are gonna
Are we having
be
tables
available to
again?
answer the
We're having
questions.
tables
we're gonna
again,
have
right?
tables again.
All right.
Yeah.
I
Bring
do remember
literature.
that I'm gonna have to have staff investigate the microphones. If I remember correctly, I think it was Ted Schauer, Alderman Schauer suggested that there be a roving microphone for whoever wants to ask a question,
Absolutely.
so that they can be heard by everybody. So I don't know how we're gonna work that out. I don't know what kind of setup Chuck's has, if anything, or if we'll have to bring in equipment, but,
Is it too much trouble to have the people come up and stand in line one by the microphone and ask the question, or is that something?
we might have to have a permanent
Yeah.
microphone
So
set up somewhere
Yeah,
that they walk up to.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
stand in line and you're next.
Okay. Okay, so August 5th, we're gonna meet again. And everybody have a better idea of exactly what you're gonna do at the meeting. Well, we've gone through it once already, so I think we all feel confident that we can handle
How
it
is
again.
it billed out? How do we advertise this? Is the second annual Darien Town Hall meeting to discuss issues with all the taxing bodies that affect you and your,
What popped into my mind is, what's your issue?
oh,
You know, but I don't, that's just me off the cuff, but,
Clear'll come up with something a little more.
yeah, I think, yeah, we have to have something, come and meet your representatives from these taxing bodies, and,
So like what's going on in town?
yes, what's going on in
What's
town.
going on in your,
And I think all of you you were sending out flyers, I think the schools were sending out flyers,
Yes.
and, you know, to the.
on all the websites?
And we
and
had it on
everything
our
on the websites.
Facebook and our website, and we had it on the scroll in the lobby, and
Come
I
and
mean-
get your questions answered.
we had a sign in the lobby
Come and get your
too.
questions answered, yeah. Okay,
my concern with the township is we're gonna get a lot of tax questions,
Uh-huh.
assessment.
oh, yeah.
So I'm.
Well, you should be
Yeah,
concerned.
right, well, right.
Maybe you'd love them to.
It wouldn't be me to answer those, I think it would have to be Terry Cockrell.
Okay.
So,
She can be part of the group, you could have one representative, and then she could jump in if that question comes.
yeah. Well, if I had my druthers, I'd say she should be it. you
Yeah.
know, Because I'm sure that's the driving question from the
And it was
township.
funny, last year we thought we would get those kinds of questions, and those are not the questions we got at all.
Yeah.
It was, yes, it
Well, the
was.
township wasn't there last year, though.
No, but even,
Couldn't even talk.
no, I think even as a taxing body, we thought because that's how we kind of said, these are the taxing bodies of Darien, and it was funny, the
Well-
kind of questions that we got.
If they find out that the tax assessor is in the room, that might be.
Well, I think that if they find out the tax assessor's in the room, that will be the
And a lot
questions
of
that they
people
get.
don't
We might
understand.
have to take a number at that.
Take a lot of pressure off of everyone else.
Yeah, all of us
Rich,
can
I
just
mean,
sit
that's
and
what's
watch.
gonna happen.
And they don't realize they're part of the
We'll have
township
hundreds.
either. That's the
Right.
other issue.
Right.
Yeah.
But maybe we don't want to market it as taxing bodies.
No.
I mean, we
Right.
probably want to market it as,
Get to know.
you know, find out what's going on, bring your concerns and questions, not just,
It's like
we don't want to
Pete
make it
and I
just
getting to
tax
know you.
questions. I mean, I think, because there's so much more to what we do.
Well, we don't have to advertise Terry Cockrell will be there as a, I'm
I
not
think
saying
everybody
she will
knows
be,
her name.
but,
I do. I
well,
think
some people don't.
You
I
need
mean,
your roadways guy there too, what's his, who's
Hi,
the other guy?
Andy Anderson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll need him there
Yeah.
too.
So, so he's a taxing body.
Okay.
he
Okay.
himself.
Ray, you gonna be the representative for Park District?
Frank and I will wrestle for it.
Okay, All right, I don't think we need to belabor this anymore, but if you have any thoughts, and you know what? If you wouldn't mind sending me an email or Lynn Dubman an email of the initiatives that you mentioned tonight, okay, because I know we're being taped now, but we weren't taped for a little while, and we might need to get that in the minutes, okay? All righty, so I really appreciate all of you coming out tonight, and Claudia, thank you for bringing
You're welcome.
John Izzo to discuss this, and take all the rest of the handouts back again, so.
So we're not to
I
take
got the
this to,
beginning, Kathleen. I did not get all the way through. I lost my battery. I've got 1% of my battery
Well, now,
left, so
okay, so let's
hopefully.
keep what you have, and then Scott Corin actually walked in. Evidently, he must have gotten my text. and
Okay,
So I don't know if we can consolidate the two, I don't know,
all
but
right.
we'll
Well, I
find out
can
if we
send it
can.
to Lynn, what I have. I
Yeah.
will send to Lynn,
Okay.
and
Marion, did
I'll do
yours
that
work?
tomorrow.
I don't know, I'm trying.
Okay,
I definitely have something.
yeah.
I mean, it's not, I know I have the very beginning. I probably have most of it.
Okay, so,
Yeah, I've got an hour and 3 minutes.
all right.
so
Or
we're not
3
gonna worry
seconds.
about this governmental agreement until we get more information with our boards, correct?
Right.
Is that how
Well,
we're
Yeah,
He's
I
gonna
wouldn't want to
send us
present this
some
to our
information.
board,
Yeah, no, I.
the way it is
Right,
right now.
Right, I
Yeah.
would, yeah.
Yeah, we need,
Yeah.
yeah, we need dollar.
I will follow up with
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, okay, so could I have a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved.
Second.
Klein always does it, and it's Abate with him, okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, everyone, for
Thank you.
showing up tonight, I appreciate that.